Hello everyone, I'm Theo Eschardt from Henry Stewart Events, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar, Frame by Frame, Keeping Tabs on Your Video Content, kindly sponsored by FADEL. During the session, please send through your questions at any point using the questions box, which you can open by clicking on the question mark at the top of your GoToWebinar window. Also a reminder that a recording of this session will be sent to you tomorrow, so you can view it again at your own pace. Now it's my great pleasure to pass you over to Gregg Guest, Vice President of Product Management at FADEL. Thank you, and over to you.
Okay, thank you, Theo. Thanks for everything, for getting us set up here. And thanks to Henry Stewart for having me back. And hello, everybody. It's good to be back with you on another Henry Stewart DAM webinar. Very excited to be back here talking about video today. Now, normally I'm here. I'm Vice President of Product Management at FADEL. Probably a lot of you know me. And we specialize in brand compliance. And a lot of our webinars we're talking about digital rights management, and recently we've been talking about content tracking. This is an interesting topic today because it really focuses more on video specifically, and things like how to organize your video and how to manage your video content in your DAM. And of course, we're also going to talk about rights and content tracking as well. So, but I'm excited to jump into this kind of, from a slightly different angle than normal. And I hope you find it interesting. Thanks for being here, everybody. Let's start out with just talking about the demand for content, which continues to accelerate. And the stat here, every 2 days we create as much information as we did since the beginning of time. And I feel like we've been talking about that stat for a long time now. Like that stat has been true for a long time. But yet it doesn't seem to let up at all. This acceleration of content is really not slowing. If anything, it's just continuing to increase because you continue to have new formats or new ways to deliver your digital content, videos, images, music, other formats that are arising. Within each of those, there's new formats coming up every day and new ways to deliver your content. Lots of new sources of content as well. So lots of folks are using really awesome in-house agencies these days to create great content. Of course, you still have external agencies. You have more stock stuff you can use than ever. You have the rise of user-generated content. Of course, now you have generative AI, a whole new area that where content can be created at the speed of light. And then, along with that, you throw in all the personalization, the regional transformations that you have to do, global aspect of your marketing, all the other things like immersive and interactive and seamless customer journeys, et cetera. And then you compound that with all the distribution channels, which as well just continue to proliferate wildly as far as websites, social media. People are working with more partner and retail sites than ever. We're working with a lot of customers doing content tracking, and the number of retail sites that our customers are working with is just crazy huge, the volume when you go global with your brand. And then, of course, the more traditional ones, don't go away, TV and print, they're still there as well. So, most of the companies we're working with are publishing, to a handful to a dozen different distribution channel sites. And that's at the low end. As I said, some of our big global customers, it's hundreds and hundreds of different places that their content's going out to. So this demand is really not slowing down at all. Ask the audience. I love this part of the webinar. It's when I get to talk to you, and I wish I could talk to you, but I'm going to instead poll you. By the way, I will be at DAM New York in October. So if you're going to be at the Henry Stewart DAM New York event, I would love to talk to you in person. So come find me there. We do have a booth there. So I hope to see you there. For now, it'll have to be a digital poll. So I'm going to ask you a poll today, and I'd love for you to give me your answer. The poll is, how many distribution channels do you push your marketing content out to? And that could include your brand website, your social media sites, e-commerce sites, partner sites you work with, retail outlets that your content goes to. I'm curious as to how many sites that is. Again, most of our customers we see at a minimum of a handful of 5 or so up to a dozen, and then beyond that, some of our larger customers 50, 100 and beyond. So I'm curious to see that, and I can't really see the poll results. So, Debbie, maybe you could shoot me the poll results there. But um, curious to see if you're having that challenge as well with the content that's coming in. So we'll just give it a minute to get the results of the question.
So, Greg, we have the results. 1 to 5 is 40%, followed by 5 to 15 with 30%, and then 15 to 50. So those are the top three.
Okay. Thank you, Theo. Sorry to make you jump in there. It's a new webinar platform here. You couldn't see the poll results on my side. We're right in that sweet spot I was talking about, which is kind of that 10 to 20 up to 50 range. It seems still some people at the lower end, but I guarantee you, as your business grows, especially if you're growing globally or to other regions, the sites that you're pushing your content to is absolutely going to increase. So what in regards to video specifically, as that segment of the content, also we're seeing that most of that content explosion is around video marketing, and that most of the customers we're working with are doing more video than they ever have before. And in fact, over 90% of businesses that were asked are doing video as part of their marketing, either a large part or a small part, but there's video. And again, once you go worldwide, video is becoming more widely consumed around the world. So video marketing is here to stay for sure, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger in the days of just kind of still images. While again, there's still a place for that, especially amongst print and other mediums. Everything is video when you think about social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. It's all moving towards video. But there's challenges around that, right? So as I said, tons of sites, potentially hundreds of sites that your content's going out to, times could be hundreds of videos. So you're talking about thousands of touch points to keep track of when you publish your videos out there. I mentioned UGC, user generated content. So a lot of more companies are working with influencers every day, and influencers, or even your own teams like regional or brand teams, might be modifying those videos in ways, as a brand compliance person, you might not be aware of. And that can create risk when those videos are changed or reused in ways that they shouldn't be. And then you have expirations, which is a problem that exists with all marketing content. Is it expiring? Are the usage rights expiring? You'll see when we get into the demo that usage rights for videos can be a bit more complicated because they have a lot of different elements. It's not just like a photo and you have rights to that photo. It's photos and music and different talent and different video clips. And so having those expiration dates for videos can be a little bit more complicated and make it harder to understand where you have video content that you need to take down. And then last but certainly not least, you add music into that mix, and you add published music into that mix. And almost every customer we're working with today at some point has gotten a letter from a record or a music publishing company saying, hey, you've got a video with a song on it and you don't have a right to use that song, right? Because people will, again, slap a song onto a video and throw it up on Instagram, and they may not have the rights for that. So that's becoming an increasing challenge as well. So one more chance for me to ask you a question, and again, Debbie, maybe you can send me the screenshot of the results. That was useful. So question number 2. This is the last time I'm going to ask you a question, I promise. How much of your marketing content is now video based? I'm just curious. What we're seeing is that customers are doing a ton more video than ever before. I'm curious, for those of you here at the webinar, how much video are you doing? Are you finding that it's increased? Are you doing more video than ever? Or is video, something you're just getting into or not doing at all? Is it something new for you? Is it something you've totally ramped up? Just curious to get a sense of how many of you are facing the challenges that we're talking about today. And I know that, we're all facing multiple distribution channels, as we saw in the last poll. But curious to see how much video is compounding that for everybody. And it looks like, you know, almost more than half of you are doing a large amount of video. Over almost half your content is video, if I'm reading those stats right. So that makes total sense to me. I'm not surprised to hear that half of everything you're doing is moving towards video. I would imagine within the next 3 years, that number is going to increase to 75% of what you're doing, most likely. If you're those of you that are doing a lot of video across multiple channels are probably already experiencing some of these issues. Those of you that are just getting into it, these are the things to look out for. And we're going to talk about how to kind of protect yourself from some of the challenges by not getting into a publish and forget mode. So often as marketers, we're moving at the speed of light. We're trying to get something out fast. All of the emphasis is really put on coming up with the campaign, creating the campaign, getting it put together, getting it out the door, getting it launched by a certain deadline within when we need to get it out to market, either to support a specific campaign event or to support a product launch or whatever it might be. And then we kind of publish it and move on to the next one, right, and forget about it. And that's really a problem, especially with video content, if you're just kind of throwing it out there and forgetting about it, because you end up with problems around protecting your brand from things like expirations. And again, it's harder with videos than it is with simple expirations for a digital asset. In the past, because just a small piece of your video could be expiring, right? Not the whole video, but one piece of it, one licensed image or one piece of music or one talent that gave you a restriction. So it's important to have that fidelity in your data and to be able to follow up on that and make sure you're not having videos that are expiring. Also, videos get accidentally posted. As I mentioned, people could be doing stuff with your video that you're not aware of, and you could accidentally publish that to a platform, and that in some cases can result in fees, because your talent agreement might say, hey, if you post this anywhere you're not supposed to, you're going to pay me more money for it. So they might come at you and say, hey, you posted this to TikTok, you weren't supposed to, you owe me some money. So there's actually can be a financial impact there. And then also counterfeits. So you want to make sure that the video you're putting out there isn't then taken by people and used to sell counterfeit versions of your product. And we're seeing a lot of that as well. So it's important to keep an eye out on your content out there for protection of your brand. Also, the reputation of your brand. So if you're working with brand ambassadors, you want that to reflect your brand positively. So you want to keep an eye on that content and where you're working with brand ambassadors, because you could have, there could be a scandal, a news scandal or something, where you want to change your brand ambassador usage for a certain particular brand ambassador. You want to pull back on the usage of them. We've done some great webinars in the past on Where's Willow and things like that, if you saw those ones, about how to handle those problems. Or it could boost your reputation too. For example, let's say your brand ambassador is somebody who just won an Olympic gold medal. You want to play that up, right? You want to make the most of that. So it helps to know where you're publishing that video and who is in it, so that you can either minimize or maximize the use of it based on the scenario. And then we did talk about UGC as well. User generated content can be great for your brand, but also can be bad for your brand if people are reflecting it in a way that's not right. So if they're taking your videos and they're putting narration over it, that doesn't convey your message, you're going to want to find that and know about that. Or if they're using unlicensed music, as I said earlier, you're going to want to know about that. Brand consistency helps with as well, because once you put your videos out there, you might then end up going through a rebranding. If you're going through a rebranding, it's really helpful to be able to know where those videos are, find the old branding and replace it with new branding so it's consistent. Stay current with your campaigns. So if you have campaigns that are coming to an end, you want to make sure you can go out and sunset those campaigns. Also, a lot of your content might be going out to retailers or partners who are selling your products through their sites, and you want to make sure they're using your videos in a way that's consistent with your brand. So you want to, again, keep tabs on this. And then finally, decision making based on it. So the more you understand where your video is, how it's being used, how it's tracking well, how it's not tracking well, and combining the usage, the places it's used with analytics from those platforms can really help you then to make decisions about marketing spend or repurposing. You can save a lot of money if you understand the rights associated with successful videos and where you have holes in your marketing that you can repurpose that to without spending any additional money, because you already have licensed content that you can reuse in new ways and different ways. Or, you may want to reuse something, but you don't have the rights, and then you want to understand how you can go renew those rights with the talent or extend those rights for the assets so that you can make the most of them without with repurposing them in different channels. So a lot of reasons here to not just throw your video out there and forget about it, but rather to publish your video content and then keep track of where it is and how it's being used and whether or not you have any issues with it or violations in that usage. So, how do you do this, right? And what are some of the things to keep in mind as you try to put a strategy around managing your video content better? Well, so I put together just a brief slide here of some best practices that we look at from our perspective. The first thing is kind of knowing the elements of a video. So like I said, video is different than a still because you have multiple clips. Each of those clips might have different talent in them. You have voiceover or music tracks. You have some stock photography or stock video that may be included. You have logos or partner branding that might be in it. So all of these things go in to a video. So a 30-second video, just a short spot, could have a lot of different elements that make that up, especially with kind of the fast cutting nature of a lot of the marketing videos that we do these days. So the first thing is you kind of have to know what those elements are that make up that video composite, because each of those elements is going to have a different set of rights or restrictions that goes with it. And the rights or restrictions of any one particular element is going to form that kind of lowest common denominator of what you can actually do with that video. So if you have one very restrictive piece of music in that video, it's going to restrict what you can do with that video. So the first step is kind of understanding what are the pieces of my video and being able to keep track of what those pieces are and how they relate to the composite video. That's going to help you with the rights management and violation side of it. And part of that is knowing what talent is associated with the video. So who is the talent that is associated with it, so that I can understand how the rights are derived from that talent, or that it may also be a licensor, somebody like a stock video house or stock photography house, the owner of that content. So knowing who the talent is or who the licensors are that have given you rights to use their content in your video, who they are, and making sure they're associated with those elements of the video. And then knowing what music is licensed. So this is, again, a really increasing challenge that we're seeing with our customers, which is keeping track of music and music licenses, which is really a whole different ball of wax from digital asset management, because typically these are not assets that you're managing. You're not keeping Taylor Swift's catalog in your DAM, but you may be licensing a song to use. So this is an area that's really a challenge, and we're going to talk later about some interesting ways that we're looking at helping customers understand what music is on their videos, and so that they can understand whether they're licensed for it or not. Wouldn't be a FADEL webinar without rights management. So capturing all the rights for all of these elements is really important to make sure you have all those rights associated with all the parts of the video. And then we get in kind of to the tracking part, which is having tools that you can use to look at your brand websites, your social media feeds, your partner sites, to find your video content. And this really means using technology that can go out and scan your websites, scan your social Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc., your retailer sites, your partner sites, and e-commerce sites as well, monitoring e-commerce sites for your digital shelf content to make sure that is kept up to date with your latest brand consistency in your videos. An important thing to mention here from a best practice standpoint is you want to make sure the tools are authorized to be doing what you're doing. So there's a lot of different technologies out there that can go and scrape the web or scrape sites, but you do have to be wary a little bit when using technology to make sure that you're allowed to be doing what you're doing. So there are ways that it can be authorized. If it's your own website, obviously you can do pretty much what you want on it. But once you get into social media and some of the e-commerce, big e-commerce sites, there's a lot of restrictions on the ways that you can access their content. So you really need to be authorized, and that often requires going through a process of vetting the technology, getting a certification from the platform like Facebook or Meta to be authorized to scan feeds on Facebook or Instagram. And for some of the large retailer sites getting vetted, they protect it because they don't want people scraping product information and then either doing counterfeits or price battles based on scraping prices. So they have legitimate reasons that have nothing to do with what we're trying to do here of why they restrict that. But if you don't go through the proper channels and get authorization to do that, then you run the risk of getting shut down, putting a lot of money into a solution and having it get shut down because you're not doing it the right way, which could also reflect back poorly on your partnerships or your brand reputation. Expirations, again, always a constant issue with expiring content. So you want to make sure that you have a mechanism to get notifications or view expirations or violations, that you have views of that data in real time that you can look at to understand where you have issues. And then automation. So being able to put workflow and reporting and automate that around streamlining actions such as takedowns. So if you have an expiration, feeding that into a workflow that goes to the right person that allows them to pull that content down if it's expiring. So they're just, I know it seems like a lot, but kind of the first half are really about the data and capturing the data you need. And the second half is about having the technology that can go out and track that content where it is. And then obviously the automation is a much larger topic as far as workflow or what types of automation tools are out there. But obviously there's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of tools out there to do all this stuff. A lot of this can be done in your DAM. Some of it can be done in, the rights management. Obviously, sophisticated rights management platform is useful if you have complex rights that you're managing. And then content tracking as well, having tools for that. There's a lot of different folks out there providing these tools. And so look at the MarTech solutions that are available out there to do this stuff. And you're going to see some of our stuff in the demo coming up. So, a lot of talking. Let me show you some stuff. Let me show you kind of how we enforce some of these best practices. Again, there's a lot of different tools out there that can help you with these. I'm going to obviously be demonstrating on Brand Vision, on FADEL's brand compliance platform. But as you'll see, a lot of this overlaps with things you might be able to do in your DAM or things you might be able to do yourself by using APIs that are available from some of the platforms, or engaging with companies like FADEL or others out there to help you get a strategy in place around this. So I'm going to log into my Brand Vision instance here, where I've got my fictional apparel company, Susie Blue Apparel, and all of our assets here stored. In specific, I'm working on Susie Blue has managed to get a sponsorship of the Olympics, and they're doing an Olympics promo. And so we've got several videos that we've produced to put into this promo, and then we've got some stock photography that we're using in it, and then we've got some licensed logos from the Olympics that are all going into this Olympics promo that we've produced. And kind of has some video elements. It has some stock photography here of the Eiffel Tower. It has some talent in these clips. I have a talent that's performing as a swimmer, and then I have talent as a runner as well, coming up here. And then our consistent marketing message. Here I have a different talent with rights that might apply to this video clip. And then of course I have the Olympic logo at the end of that. And the proud sponsorship of Susie Blue. So it's a 30-second spot there, and sorry if the sound didn't work well there, but again, it's a 30-second spot, and it's made up of these various components that I want to track. So how do I do that? So if I go into my asset list here and I pull up that promo, now I'm looking at that promo. I can see it here. I want to be able to say, hey, this is a video, and it's not just a singular video. It's made up of various elements, and so I want to be able to really define that as a composite asset, and be able to say this is a composite asset that's made up of a variety of components. And then I want to be able to define those components. So if I look at the components of this video, I can see all those things we just saw in the video. There's my Eiffel Tower still image that I've got. There's my Olympics logo that I've used in it. There's a video clip of the swimmer and a video clip of the runner. And all those things are part of this video. And if I go in and I look at the individual components, such as the Eiffel Tower, now I'm looking at this asset particularly, which is my stock photo of the Eiffel Tower with the Olympic rings. And I can see that the rights to this asset are stored here along with this asset. And so for this particular asset, I have pretty wide usage, all territories and all uses, but it's restricted for a very specific date range. That's because it might have been expensive to license this. So I really only licensed it for a 2-month period around when the Olympics are, because that's really all I need it for. So I've captured that data here from July through the end of August that I've licensed that. And if I go back to my promo and I look at the Olympics logo, for example, so here's the Olympics logo asset. And if I look at the rights for that, they're broader. I can use that everywhere starting in July 1st with no specific out date on when I have to stop using that. And then I have my 2 video clips. So if I look at my swimmer clip here, I can see the swimmer clip. And as I mentioned, you want to know who the talent is in the swimmer clip. So I can look at the contributors to this clip, and I can see that Madeline Modell, a model, was used in this clip to portray a swimmer. And then Madeline's agreement is going to dictate certain rights, which in this case is all territories, but only social media use. So from this particular model, we only got social media use, and it's for the whole year, but it's limited to social media. And if I go back to the last clip here for the runner, similarly, if I look at the runner talent, we can see this is a different model. It's our good old Willow Lent model from our other webinars. We use her a lot. So she's associated with this clip, and the rights from her agreement might be different. So in this case, I've got all territories, but it's limited to YouTube and Facebook. So it's even more specific than social media. It's limited to 2 very specific platforms there. So that's just a really quick view of how you can capture the elements of a video, capture the rights for each of those elements, associate them to the composite of the final video. And when you do that, you can then get a view very easily across all those underlying component assets of what the availability for this final video is. And we can see that it's for Facebook and YouTube, limited to those, because again, Willow's contract limited us to YouTube and Facebook. So we can only post this on YouTube and Facebook. And we can see that the date range is limited to that 2-month period that's restrictive of the Eiffel Tower photo, because that was restricted to a 2-month period. So we can only publish that for 2-month period. So when you boil that all down, and again, you need some technology to do that analysis and provide this type of view, you can see that this video has this availability for Facebook and YouTube for that 2-month period. So I've captured all that data. It's a great first step to be able to capture that data and have it all available. Because now, if I have somebody who wants to use this asset and they come into the DAM and they want to publish this asset out, they can then do a clearance check on it, and they can get a clearance on that. So I can clear this asset and say, for this asset, I want to clear this, say from the beginning of August, and I want to run it through the end of September. And I want to run that on all territories, and I want to run it across all social media platforms. And I can ask the question and immediately get an answer on that, which says this is partially available. And why is it partially available? Well, now because I've defined all those relationships and rights, I can drill down and see that the runner clip is partially available and the Eiffel Tower is partially available. The other 2 are green. But if I want to find out more fidelity about this, I can drill down into the asset runner. And of course, we already saw this in the other view, really. Only Facebook and YouTube are available for what I asked for, which was all social media across all territories. So I have those rights. And if I look at the Eiffel Tower, I can see that everything on social media is yellow, is partially available. So I kind of got to drill into that one level more. And when I do, I see that time restriction, right? Which is that this particular component of the video is only good through the end of August. So once I get to September, which I asked for, I can no longer use it. So that allows me to really easily make decisions about what I do with this particular video. I can swap, if I really need to publish it in September, I can swap this out for a different image that I have rights to. If I need to publish it across more social media channels, I can edit out the runner clip, right? Or I can just understand what I can do, which in this case is YouTube, and I'm just going to publish it to YouTube at that point. So I can publish it out to YouTube. So there you get a really good sense of how capturing all that data and those relationships between the assets and the composite up front and all the rights data is super powerful on the back end for the end user that's going to publish this content. So now let's say I went ahead and I published it, okay? Now, what did I say earlier? Don't publish and forget, right? So how do we do that? Well, one of the best practices was to have reporting or views of where you have violations and stuff. So now that I've published that out to YouTube, I want to make sure I'm monitoring. So let's say I've got somebody on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, whatever I find is necessary to look at my asset violations. And I've set up an asset violation view here. And when I run it right now, I can see that I've got 2 violations. One is the promo and one is the Eiffel Tower. So let's look at the Eiffel Tower first, which is that stock image. So again, if I go back to that asset record where we looked at the rights and everything for it, now I can see that there's a usage tab. And when I look at the usage tab, it shows me where this was published and used, which is on our Susie Blue YouTube. And it'll show me the status, which is nearing expiration. And it'll also show me where in that video this image is used. So in our promo that we published to YouTube, I can see it has this image in it, and this image is nearing expiration, which is great because that's when I want to know about it, is when it's nearing expiration, because I haven't reached violation yet. So I can reach out to my YouTube manager and say, you got to pull this clip down because it's expiring. So you got to pull it down before it expires. Or I can put an automation around that process, which is one of the other best practices. So really powerful to be able to instantly see where your issue is. Now, there was another issue there for the promo itself, which is weird because we published it to YouTube. It hasn't expired yet. Should be green on YouTube. So let's see what's going on there. And if I come into the promo and look at my usage tab, I can see it on YouTube, it is nearing expiration. And again, that's because of what we just looked at, which is the Eiffel Tower image that's going to expire. But we're still in the yellow, which is good. So we're okay here as long as we don't let that go past its expiration point on YouTube. But what I've discovered is that it's also on TikTok. And I didn't publish it to TikTok. So what's on TikTok? So if I look at TikTok and I look at let me just pause it. If I look on TikTok, it's actually a different video on TikTok. So it's not my Olympic video. It's a different video, but somebody has used the clip of the runner with some other stuff, like a clip of a boxer. And they used the clip of the swimmer, and they put together a generic kind of general marketing message around the athletic apparel campaign. So separate campaigns. So it's not the same video as the Olympic video. It's an apparel video. However, if I look at the matching for that, I can see that when I look at that video, parts of it, this part in particular, the runner, matches my Olympics promo. And this part here matches my Olympics promo, not the boxer, but the swimmer. So I have those 2 clips that match to it. And the problem is those clips didn't have the rights to TikTok. So when somebody did that and they re-edited this and put it on TikTok, that's a violation. And now the system's telling me you have missing rights. So I can immediately reach out to my TikTok person and say, hey, or find out who did this and say, you got to pull that down. It's a violation. You can't do that. So the technology is really awesome to be able to see where those clips are being used. And again, whether it's the full promo or specific parts of it that have an issue, the technology can go out and find those on your sites and tell you where you have issues with them. So how do we do all that? Well, again, it's all done through the technology. And in this case, it's our tracking technology that's doing it. So I can set up tracking technology to point at my various different sites. And for example, my TikTok and my YouTube. And when I do that, the indexer, the tracking indexer, will go out and index all the content on these sites, and it'll tell me where I have indexed videos, all the videos on the site that it finds, and all the videos that match to videos in my DAM where I have matches, and it'll show me all that information. And that's the information that is giving me that usage view that I have there on the Olympics promo that shows me where that's being used and where I might have rights violations. So super powerful technology there, and really can save you from issues with, again, brand consistency, violation, expiration issues, et cetera. Now, there's some other use cases beyond that that I think are pretty interesting that I wanted to talk about. So one of them is, you saw how we kind of did an image recognition in the video there by finding the Eiffel Tower image in that video. So that image within video technology can also be used for a variety of other interesting use cases. One of which is rebranding. So if you're rebranding and you need to find a particular logo and swap it out, you can use the technology to find that logo anywhere it is in your videos, and then make sure you swap that video out or swap it out with a new version with the new logo. So that's pretty powerful as well. Sunsetting, I think I mentioned this earlier. If you have a campaign that you're sunsetting, Olympics is a perfect example. Then you can search for that. So for example, if I know I did an Olympic campaign, I want to sunset it because the Olympics is over, I can come in here and I can, search for that particular asset, find it very simply, look at it and say, okay, where was this used and where do I need to pull it down from? We can see it was used on Susie Blue YouTube, and it was used on SusieBlue.com when we announced our sponsorship. Both are green. I have the rights to them, but I may want to pull them down. So that's not a violation use case. It's just I want to find that particular logo where it was used so I can pull it down. And so, really powerful for that as well. And similarly, if you're doing product updates, and you have, digital shelf content that's changing, or your packaging is changing, or your branding is changing around your products, or your PIM, your official PIM product content is changing, you can go out and find those particular product images on your e-commerce or retailer partner sites and make sure you're swapping that out for the latest product update. So that's a pretty cool use case that the technology can be used for, logo object image recognition. Another is around facial recognition. So this is becoming, obviously with AI, this is becoming much more prevalent. So if you're working with a lot of actual celebrities, there's great technology that you can use to find celebrities in your content. And you can get those right from Google. Google Cloud Vision APIs have some really good recognition models around celebrities. So if you're working with Scarlett Johansson and you want to find Scarlett Johansson in all your assets, you can do that pretty easily by connecting up to those APIs. Similar to that is a talent identification. So if you can identify the talent that in new marketing content that's coming into your DAM, you can then automate rights management by identifying the model. So in our example, if I can identify Willow and I can identify Madeline, I can tie those assets as they come in to the agreements for that talent and really automate and streamline that process, which is pretty powerful as well. And then finally, your own custom AI modeling that you can do is now becoming more and more possible to be able to build custom AI data models for kind of those, non-famous celebrities that you work with, that are just the, kind of talent that you work with on an everyday basis in your campaigns that might not be celebrities. So they might not be included in something like the Google Vision APIs. But you can build an AI model for that person and be able to find them in your content in your DAM. And a lot of the DAMs out there are already doing this. A lot of people are already doing this. And so you may have that capability already in your DAM platform. If not, there's other ways to do that as well. And lots of people are beginning to offer these types of solutions around facial recognition. So pretty cool. And then finally, the music use case, which I keep coming back to because I think this is one that's going to continue to become more of a challenge for customers to understand where they have music that's being used that they may or may not have licenses for. So being able to look at an asset and tag that asset in your DAM for published music to say, have technology tell you look at it, and then it's AI based. Look at that wave files for that and tell it's similar to Shazam, right? The kind of thing Shazam does, but basically look at your video and identify a song and know who that song belongs to and be able to tag that asset in your DAM with that information. So you know that if you're going to use that asset, you better have a license for that song. So kind of the inward looking at your assets to look at that. You can also look kind of outbound at your sites and use tracking technology like we were looking at in the demo to find music on your sites. So somebody might have published something to your social media, your Instagram with a song, you might not even be aware of it. And then you're going to get a notice from from the music publisher if you don't have the rights to use that on your Instagram. So checking your Instagram, using those tracking tools to look at your Instagram, your Facebook, your social, and your websites to understand if you have published music out there that you need to have a license for. And then also UGC, as I mentioned, a lot of UGC, user generated content influencers, are doing wild stuff with music. They're using music. They might be taking your video, putting music on top of it that they don't have the rights to and that you don't have the rights to, and putting that up on Instagram. So keeping track of that content will protect you as well. And that's where it gets kind of interesting too, because a lot of those folks are doing things like mashups, like taking two songs, like taking Taylor Swift and Harry Styles and putting those together. Or speeding up is a big thing for some reason now too, speeding it up to like chipmunk speed and having the music sped up. And the technology is really good. So the music identification AI technology that's available now can parse through that. It can actually understand that it is two songs mashed up, or that it is a song where the pitch has been changed. So the technology is getting really good. From our part at Brand Vision, we're really excited about this area. Again, we're getting a lot of requests from customers to support them and help them in this area. So we're actually in our next release, I'm excited about this. We're adding our first kind of music identification in Brand Vision, which will allow you to identify published music on the assets in your DAM. Whatever DAM you're using, Brand Vision is designed to integrate with DAMs. It has its own built-in DAM as well, but it also integrates with external DAMs. So you can connect this up to your DAM, and then you'll be able to understand any published music of the assets in your DAM. So for example, here you see an asset. The technology is able to identify that and say, I found a song, it's a Tate McRae song, it's owned by Sony Music, and it'll tell you exactly where in that video that particular music is used, so that you can make sure you have a license to that and you don't get in trouble with that. So that's an area we're really excited to be expanding into, and we're going to be adding that into the content tracking as well, so that you can do the same thing when you look at your sites using the content tracking. But again, there's a ton of tools out there for this. So however you approach it, it's just something to keep in mind, and it's going to be a very important piece of your best practice strategy going forward, to include music, music awareness of what music is being used on your assets and whether or not you're licensed for it. So, with all that, you get a good payoff for that. It sounds like a lot of work, but it's really technology is your friend here. If you have the right system in place to manage your assets and manage your asset rights, then it's not that difficult to get that data organized the way I did, which is to say, here I have certain talent rights and they're tied to certain assets, and those assets are related to certain video content. If you can set that all up, you can get that going. And then the content tracking technology, again, the technology is doing all the work here. If you had to do the work yourself and go out and check your brand website, check your social media sites, check all of your retailer and e-commerce sites for content rights violations, you couldn't do it. It's impossible. But if you could, it would take forever. So you get a huge reduction in the time spent, the person hours that are spent in monitoring those things. And from the rights management side, you get a huge reduction in time clearing assets. So earlier in the demo, when you saw I did that clearance immediately from the DAM, I can immediately get that clearance answer. I don't need to call anybody or dig out a contract. So you get a big reduction in time spent clearing assets. Because of all those things, you then get a huge reduction in the actual content violations that you're going to experience, because you don't have to spend as much time clearing assets, because you have that clearance information at the start of the process when you're publishing, and you have technology keeping track of everything and keeping tabs on your video content. So you're not going to have as many rights violations and expirations as you would if you didn't have that strategy in place. And then, on top of that, you get an additional cost reduction for content reuse, because if you're able to see where you used content, how you can use content, where it performed well, then you can very easily take the, so in the case that we showed where somebody took the runner clip and the swimmer clip and edited a video and put it on TikTok, that created a violation. But if I knew all that data, which I did, I could have gone to that talent runner and said, hey, we want to license this for TikTok because it did so well on YouTube. So can we extend the agreement to TikTok? And you can then extend those rights, update that data, provide that clearance, and publish it out to TikTok. And it's generally going to be less than, creating new content, right? So being able to take pieces of that content and reuse it in ways that you can use it, it helps in reducing the costs of licensing new content. So a lot of benefits to this. I've given you a lot of information today. I hope it's been helpful. I hope it started getting you thinking about your video content and the complexity that lies underneath that 30-second spot, but how incredible the technology is and how easily you can actually put in place the data and the systems to be able to help keep tabs on your video as it leaves your organization and goes out into the world, and save yourself time, save yourself money, save yourself headaches. So next steps, if you are curious about what you saw and how it works, we'd love to talk more with you about it. What you can do is you can simply email us at solutions@fadel.com. If you email us your YouTube channel URL, we'll actually run it through the content tracking that I showed you today. And then somebody from FADEL will reach out to you and review the results with you and kind of give you a firsthand look at how that works when it looks at your channel and what the results are. And it's pretty cool when you see your content, your actual content coming through the tool and being tracked there on your site. So I encourage you to do that. No charge at all for that. Happy to show you how that works and have that discussion with you. If you're kind of a step beyond that and you're ready to kind of get started and you get it and you want to try this out, we do have a special promotion associated with this webinar where you can kind of kickstart that digital content monitoring with a quick start package. It's pretty affordable at $5,000, and that gives you the ability to track 7 different sites. So if you want to do your YouTube and your Facebook and your Instagram and your TikTok and your brand website, and 2 more, like maybe an Amazon product page and a partner site, you can set that all up for $5,000 and have that up and running and get immediate insights from the tool for that. Now, we can help you with that. So for no additional charge, we will have our FADEL service team work with you to set that all up, and they can even manage it as kind of a managed service for no additional cost and run it and give you the results. Or if you're a hands-on type person, you can dig in and do it all yourself, or some combination. They can help you get it up and running and then hand you off the ball, and you can manage it going forward. And so I encourage you to reach out to us at Solutions@FADEL to explore those options. We would love to talk to you more. And again, we will be at DAM New York in October. We have a booth there, so come by and stop by and talk to us. And I will be there, so I would love to meet you and talk to you in person. So come find me at the booth or look around the room. I also have a couple of panels that I'll be on, so I hope to see you there. I think we have some time for questions, so I'll open it up to Theo for any questions from the audience.
Yes. Well, first of all, thank you, Greg, for a really insightful session on managing video content. So we do have a few questions from our attendees. First question, is Brand Vision actually recognizing the logo or image within the videos, or is it using the relationship link between the still and the video it is used in to pull up all video assets that the image is associated with?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Somebody who definitely gets the nuances of the technology. So it actually is using an AI image matching algorithm to do that in Brand Vision. So it is actually doing an image to image match of that frame in the video against the image in the DAM. It would find that whether you had that reference or not. It would identify that in the video. So it's not based on the data relationship. It's based on the actual visual similarity matching that's going on between it. So it's a true image match that's happening there and matching that image. Same thing for the Eiffel Tower, anything for an image, and actually matching the videos works the same way. It's just a frame basis. So the way it works is we're taking, hundreds of keyframes from those video clips, and we're matching those to the keyframes of the video clips in your DAM. And so it's all done through matching. None of the identification through the tracking was done purely based on the relationship of the composite asset that I showed. The relationship of the components to the composite is really more about the rights aspect of it, and understanding, which elements have which rights and where you would have violations based on a very specific part of that video. So I hope that answered the question. Great question.
Thank you, Greg. We have another question. So can you use these tools to scan other locations? For example, if there is a social media channel that is frequently using your media without authorization.
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, you have to be careful when you're doing things without authorization. And as far as social media goes, in most cases, you can only really scan the things that you quote unquote own. So your business pages, your Facebook feeds, your Instagram feed. That's true for most of the social media, where you can't really scrape other people's feeds. They don't allow it. So again, you have to be careful about what you do and how you do it. And there are limitations on what you can do. Now, from our perspective, since we're mostly focused on brand compliance, the stuff that you're not publishing is typically less likely to result in a compliance issue for you because you're not responsible for it. So if some third party takes your content and does something with it that you're not aware of, you're not going to necessarily be liable for that because you didn't do it. They stole your content and did something with it. Is it good to know about it? Yes, because there's our kind of brand reputation issues about that. So, but as far as compliance goes, you're a little bit more protected from that type of use case. The stuff I was talking about with influencers, UGC, and stuff like that, that tends to be brand approved content, right? Or brand solicited content. So you're more likely to run into a risk with that content, which is why you want to be able to track those things on your that are tagged to your Instagram. But once you start going beyond to other people's content, it becomes harder to have those tools be able to scrape. Now, there are broader tools that can scrape the internet and things like that, like Google web search, et cetera. But most of that doesn't support video today. It's images only. So you will hit some roadblocks if you're trying to find content that's not on your sites, because there are different restrictions to do that. Even with some websites, you could point, a scraper, right? I'll call it, because there are tools that can go scrape a website and show you what's on it. But you may run into different, robot.txt restrictions. So a lot of sites are restricting the crawling by those types of robots or things, or they can detect that it's not a human looking at it, and they'll block you, again, because they don't want that from a price, from a competitive perspective. It protects their customers from competition and things like that. So you will, depending upon the platform, you may run into restrictions with that. So complicated answer. I hope I helped with that. I would love to talk to you. If you're at DAM, come talk to me more about it.
Thank you. So next question is about potential and actual violations. Will specific individuals receive notifications of violations unless the DAM manager or others will have to manually do a manual check daily? Sorry, I think that was a typo.
Yeah, I think I got the question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to automate whatever you can. I didn't get into the reporting or notification aspect in Brand Vision because we didn't have time for that today. But we do have violation reports that you can set up, and those can be subscribed to by different people. So you can have that automatically go out to people and notify them when there's violations. We also have a built-in workflow engine, so you can trigger a specific workflow to a person or a team of people who are responsible for handling violations or takedowns, and fire off a workflow task in a structured workflow. So there's numerous ways to do that we do it in Brand Vision. And or you may be using already a workflow engine in your organization, or you may have a sophisticated IT team that can build automation or workflows around that. All the data that we have is available through export reporting and or through APIs. So you can connect up to the API. And if you want to build some custom solution around that automates that, you can use our APIs to do that. So there's really a world of possibilities as far as automation. And, again, a lot of customers are using things like Workfront process, so you can feed it into that. We open it all up so that you can drive either brand vision internal workflows or external workflows through other means. And that typically is the best practice, is to be able to have an automated workflow task around those violations, as opposed to manually having to come in and check it every day.
Thanks, Greg. We have another question about music rights.
Okay.
So regarding music rights, are you able to show the relationships of syncs and master agreements and the percentage ownership of licenses?
Not quite sure I fully understand that question. And again, this is an area we're just getting into. So what we're doing today is really starting with identifying where that music is and who owns that music. As I mentioned, it's a little bit different than a normal digital asset, because the digital assets in your DAM are typically things that you either own or created, and you're licensing somebody's likeness or content for it. And you're typically doing agreements with the talent, et cetera. And music licensing is a whole different world on how it works and how you license music. So I think it's an evolving area that, even from a rights management perspective, we are evolving into figuring out how best to handle the tracking of all those rights. But our first step is kind of the identification piece of it, to understand where that music is, and we get some fidelity there, as far as there's a lot of detail available about that song, who owns it, who the artist is, the IDs and everything associated to it in the music catalogs, as well as the fidelity of where in that clip you have the music. So it will tell you, the time signature, the length of that clip, because again, the length that you use can affect the licensing or the cost of using that music, if you're using under 30 seconds versus over 30 seconds and things like that. So there's a lot of iterations there that I think we are still looking into the best way to handle those. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure I answered the question fully. Again, if you want to dig into it more, feel free to email me after, or come see us at DAM, and we can dig into that topic a bit more.
We actually have another question about music licensing. So how does content tracking find unlicensed music in a company video?
Yeah, so kind of feeding on the other question, and I'm glad to hear all these music questions, because, like I said, this is an area that's really fast becoming a challenge for folks. Um, uh, we're using a technology that is scanning the audio on the video assets, and it's doing an actual music match. So it's doing an algorithmic music match to the wave files, and then it's querying and finding that music match in a signatures in a music catalog that has the information about who owns that music. So that's how the technology is working. So we can point that at the video in your DAM, in Brand Vision, or in your DAM if you're connected up to Brand Vision, and we can find the music in it. Whether or not it's licensed or unlicensed is kind of a separate question that goes back to what I was just saying, which is we're trying to figure out the best way to track music licensing, because it is a little bit different than your normal kind of talent agreements that go with your digital assets. So ideally, in the near future, we'll be looking at how you can tag that. Now you can tag it the way we tag assets today, which is basically to say I have a music license with Sony Music, for example, and this asset is tagged to that, and I have rights. So just like I had the rights for Willow and Madeline in the demo, you can have the rights tied to that for Sony Music. So if you have those rights and you can capture them, that's great. That's really good. But what we're seeing at customers is that a lot of times the music licensing is a totally separate piece from the digital asset management and the rights and the DRM management. And that's what we're trying to bridge and figure out that. So again, I would love to follow up with you after and get your insights on it, if it's something you're working with in the real world, and you can help us help you on how to best manage the licensing of the music.
Thank you, Greg. And I think we may have time for one final question.
Sure.
Can you track videos across the whole internet? So worldwide.
Always one of my favorite questions because it always gets asked, like, well, can you find my stuff anywhere? And even if you could, which it's hard to. I mentioned there's things like Google Web Search. So we do employ Google Web Search in Brand Vision as well to give our customers the ability to, if they want to throw out a wider net and see where something was used, they can search the entire web using, we actually use the Google Vision APIs to power that. So they can, but again, it only supports images. It's not for videos, which is why I didn't get into it in this particular webinar because we're talking about video. So it's really only for images. So it's very hard to scan the entire internet right now for videos. But even if you could, you know, you would get a lot of data that would make it very hard to analyze the data. So you would get a lot of noise in that. So that's that's not the best practice that we pretty much endorse. Which is, and again, back to what I said on the earlier question, if something's out there that somebody did something with on a site that you have nothing to do with, you have very little liability related to that. So, our best practice is to focus on where are you publishing content that you have licensed to make sure that you're not violating or expiring that content and to make sure that it's being consistent with your brand messaging and your campaigns. And beyond that, you start to get into edge cases about it. So there are ways to scan for images across the internet. Not aware of too many ways to scan for videos across the internet, but also not something I would recommend unless there was a very specific use case that it became critical to do so.
Thank you so much, Greg. And if you're interested in finding out more about FADEL, do get in touch with Greg or visit their booth at our upcoming event, DAM New York, which will take place on October 23rd and 24th. A reminder that the link to access the recording of this webinar will be sent to you all tomorrow as well. And thank you everyone for attending today's session, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.